R.Jackson inducted into the Hall of Fame last night as well. And boy, what a complete player he was. Saints had never had a winning season until he got there and started doing things like that to Boomer Esiason and company. As good a pass rusher as he was, and that's what he was recognized for, I think he made the Hall of Fame as a complete player. Wade Phillips was talking about what an incredible run defender he was. And boy, he made a difference for the New Orleans Saints.
Well, Wade was on the coaching staff, so we saw it firsthand. Touchback here, and the subject of Rickey Jackson. Here he is with Andrea.
And now it's also fitting that in the year that New Orleans won the Super Bowl, Rickey Jackson becomes the first player drafted by the Saints to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you, Rickey?
It means a whole lot for me. I mean, you know, you've been waiting on it for the last 10 years, and the call finally came to you. And, you know, it's just a blessing to get such high call like that.
Well, toughness was also your calling card. You missed 2 games in 13 seasons, and that was because of a car accident. How did you play the rest of that season?
Well, I mean, you know, I didn't want to miss the first game. So, you know, fortunately, Coach helped me out. But, you know, with the cage and stuff that I had on the face mask, I could have still played, but he decided to hold me out.
You had your jaw wired shut. That's pretty good. Now, as for the Dome Patrol, Pat Swilling, Vaughn Johnson, the late Sam Mills, and yourself, what was special about that unit?
All of us worked hard, all of us were smart, and we kind of fed off of one another, know what each other were going to do, and we put a lot of time together and studied the film, and we know what the offensive team is going to do.
All right, Rickey, thanks very much. We appreciate it. And Al, you were just talking about Wade Phillips being his linebacker coach. Well, Wade Phillips said that Anthony Spencer is like Rickey Jackson, pretty high praise.
Yeah, Anthony Spencer really coming on. And
as for the Saints, they enjoyed their first day off since camp began back on July 30th. But things will pick up starting tomorrow with a visit to the White House, followed by a stopover at Patriots camp. Another black and gold scrimmage in the books, and the Saints walk away with plenty to ponder. Should they be concerned over the offense's struggles?
Oh yeah, no, that's frustrating.
Should the defense pat itself on the back for a job well done?
I feel we got the better of them today, so you know, I think I have a lot more to say than Drew.
The answer to both questions is a resounding no. But it's certainly okay to be extremely critical of both, because it's what's expected of a Super Bowl champion, to not have any fall off in the one area you excel in. And the expectation is to improve mightily in the one area you struggled with.
I definitely see differences. You know, the best example I could say was that 2-minute drive where they hit the long pass, they're on the 10-yard line, and then 4 downs later, no points. So I think that, you know, this time last year, we might have given that up.
But we've yet to get enough from the offense. On Saturday, all 4 quarterbacks were harassed in the throwing errors.
The times where we fell behind the chains, whether it was a sack or a penalty, those are the tough long yardage situations I alluded to. Overall, though, it was pretty good.
With plenty to improve on going forward, the Saints now set their sights on a busy week ahead. First stop, Washington, D.C. tomorrow for a meet and greet with President Barack Obama.
I think that going to see President Obama, a lot of guys are excited to see him. I know I'm excited.
And this week, the champs will take the field in Foxborough, Massachusetts with the Patriots. 2 days of workouts with New England leading up to Thursday's preseason opener against the Pats.
It's good to break up the monotony to play and compete against somebody else, especially when you're going to get a bunch of different looks. You just feel like you're getting exposed to everything prior to the season, which is good preparation.
Once again, Saints will meet the president tomorrow morning. Afterwards, they'll depart for Foxborough, where they'll spend the next 3 days going helmet to helmet with the New England Patriots. The black and gold kick off the preseason Thursday night against the Pats at 6:30. Still to come, we'll head back to Canton, Ohio for an in-depth look back at Rickey Jackson's Hall of Fame enshrinement and get Jim Henderson's thoughts on City Champs' call to the Hall. And from City Champ to Hall of Famer, it's where Saints fans always believed Rickey Jackson deserved to be. Last night, number 57 made history by becoming the Saints' first ever Hall of Famer. Scott Cody and Jim Henderson wrap up our coverage from Canton.
In that building, the artifacts and legends that have helped make pro football the most popular sport in America, and now a part of that history, one of New Orleans' greatest. Rickey Jackson grew up in Pahokee, Florida, but last night's enshrinement to the Pro Football Hall of Fame gave Whodats a Hall of Famer they can call their own.
Presenting Rickey Jackson.
Even on the day he's immortalized with a bronze bust in the NFL's most hallowed of halls, perhaps it's only appropriate that Rickey Jackson is still overshadowed. Emmitt Smith and Jerry Rice headlined the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2010, and the jerseys around Canton would suggest nothing different. It's the way number 57 has always gone about his business, behind the scenes, out of the spotlight, despite career numbers that jump off the page. Hoodats know the fodder, and many can recite them like a bedtime fairy tale. 128 sacks. At the time he retired, that was the third highest total in NFL history. He's currently at number 10. His 28 recovered fumbles, third best in NFL history. A 4-time All-Pro, a 6-time Pro Bowler. His performance on the field screamed Hall of Fame upon his retirement following the 1995 season. But issues off the field ultimately delayed the inevitable. As his child support payments fell behind, Jackson believes he fell out of favor with voters, but never to the point of doubting his enshrinement altogether.
I know it was going to come, after I got all the off-the-field stuff straightened out, it was, the Saints winning, they couldn't do nothing but come.
An historic Super Bowl run coincided perfectly with his personal life apparently being squared away. And now, Jackson can enjoy the fruits of his labor rather than answer to the sins of his past.
Did everything, when the Saints did the run. And plus, you're getting your little business straight. One thing about it, if you came in, other stuff would have overshadowed you. So God got a better timing than we got.
Jackson represents the first monumental shift towards success for the Saints franchise. His draft class in 1981 helped set in motion the team's first winning season in 1987. The Saints wouldn't have a losing season for the remainder of his tenure in the black and gold. But the city champ almost missed out on becoming a legend in New Orleans. Unlike now, patience back then wasn't a virtue for Jackson. A plea to get shipped out fell on deaf ears with Jim Finks and Jim Mora. In Jackson, they saw a pivot about which they could turn the fortunes of the Saints around. The Dome Patrol was formed, and the laughable Aints became perennial contenders.
When you're young and hot-headed and stuff, sometimes you're thinking with the wrong head.
It seemed losing was the only pain he couldn't endure. A car crash in 1989 that left Jackson with a fractured cheekbone and in need of surgery sidelined him for just 2 weeks. From the time he was drafted until the day he left for San Francisco, Jackson started in every game he played for the Saints. He was as constant as a halftime second line and stale beer at the Superdome on Sundays. But despite the success the Saints enjoyed, Jackson felt as though the team had hit a wall. And while he was ready to run through it, the front office wasn't. So Jackson entered free agency, signing with the Saints' biggest divisional rival. A move that eventually gave him a Super Bowl ring, but initially broke his heart.
I'm a New Orleans guy, and even was a time when I was more frustrated not about the team or the city. It was just out there that, you looked like they weren't trying to, win or get in the right position to win. So, that's when you get frustrated with them. Otherwise, you always want to be in New Orleans. I thought maybe some of them should have won.
But the fans would stay, and Rickey would come back. In 1998, he attempted a return to the NFL at age 39. It ended almost as soon as it began, but never tarnished his legacy. And now that legacy is bronzed. The comeback is complete.
We're joined now by Jim Henderson. Definitely an exciting evening for Rickey Jackson last night. You saw or called every game that he played in as a professional. Your best memories?
Well, I have a lot of memories of Rickey Jackson. At one point, I think in the broadcast, I used to refer to him as the ultimate warrior. I'm not sure the natural wouldn't have been just as appropriate.
Born to the game. That's what Rickey Jackson was. If you were ever to construct the ideal outside linebacker, you would make him in Rickey's mold. Tough, relentless, durable, dependable, and instinctive. He was all those things and more to the Saints. Most career games, most career sacks, most seasons, most forced fumbles, most recovered fumbles, all team records. Rickey Jackson either found the ball or the ball found him with amazing regularity. This weekend in Canton, Ohio, the NFL Hall of Fame finally found him. In one of the strongest classes the NFL has ever inducted, the primary attention went to others, as longtime friend Jerry Vergadamo, who accompanied Rickey here this weekend, noted.
You don't see many 57s here this week.
No, you really don't. I was a little disappointed in one of the souvenir tents. I went in there, and I mean, everywhere you look is Jerry Rice and Emmitt Smith.
The greatest wide receiver in league history and its all-time leading rusher deservedly drew the greatest amount of fans and attention. They would anchor the telecast. Theirs would be the more polished presence in the spotlight. And Rickey's friend worried that the stage might loom too large for a linebacker from a town so small.
I brought him to many of football games, and not once did I even think he thought he was scared of anything. But this here,
Bum Phillips, who drafted him, once said of Rickey Jackson, he doesn't see blockers. And this night, he didn't see any impediments. A splintered family and a humble upbringing had laid in his path to stardom. He was and is Pahokee, Florida proud, as it is of him.
I knew I was going to be a great football player. I always wanted to play football. And what enticed me to really try to play football was you come to Pahokee, they had on the sign, welcome to home of Mel Tillers. And Mel Tillers was a country singer. And man, he you know what I mean, we had things around my hometown that you could do wrong if you choose to do wrong. But me seeing that sign say, welcome to the home of Mel Tillers, I wanted my name on that sign.
Bum Phillips said he never wanted players who always did what he said and never wanted players who never did what he said. It always seemed at the game's crucial moments, when a defensive play had to be made, it was Rickey who made it. Drawing on what his coaches had given him, combined with a native intelligence for the game and reaction to the situation, no one could.
Bum Phillips drafted me with the Saints. That's how I got with the Saints. And he did a great job, him and Coach John Paul and then Wade Phillips. They did a great job with me, keeping me focused.
In subsequent remarks, he implored the NFL to broker labor peace with a lockout looming in 2011. He saluted Saints owner Tom Benson, who presented him for induction for saving the Saints for New Orleans in Katrina's wake and shepherding the Saints' first Super Bowl championship. And he ended as he began, by thanking the Lord for the hand he has laid on a life that could have gone where so many of those of his friends in Pahokee did.
I lost my mother. I went back home and spent a lot of time with her. And I found me a good church. I got into the church, and it steered me in the right direction. And, man, I can say to all of y'all in here, find your church home, and make sure, man, that you give Christ your life.
Of Earl Campbell, Bum once said he's not in a class by himself, but it doesn't take long to call the roll. As the first true Saint in the Hall of Fame, Rickey Jackson is in a class by himself, and it didn't take long to call the 2010 NFL Honor Roll this night, and his name will forever be in that number.
Of course, Willie Roaf and Morton Anderson are in the pipeline to join Rickey Jackson in the Hall of Fame behind me in the near future, we hope. But how appropriate that Rickey Jackson's the first Saint in the Hall of Fame, a leader yet again, Scott.
Last night in his speech, didn't talk about many teammates. I think a lot of that probably got nervous. Not the best of public speakers, but you could tell he was still speaking from the heart. He spoke of things that he loved, his hometown, spoke of his faith, spoke of his mother. It had to be an exciting time for him, but you would have liked to have heard him talk about some of those guys that you mentioned and some of those players that helped make him so great.
I agree, and I wish I could have heard a little bit more about Bum Phillips, because he and Bum were really on the same wavelength. I think those would have been good memories to share. And Jim Mora and the collection of linebackers, those 4 linebackers, the Dome Patrol, that the NFL may never see the likes of again.
You know, and we talked about it earlier in this segment, how tough this guy was. We talked about the car crash. There's numerous other examples, and I think that's probably the one thing that you got when you talk to guys that played against him, was the fact that he had to be the toughest SOB they ever played against.
I don't think he ever wore much padding. I don't think he ever taped his ankles. He never really had a great definition to his body. I don't think he was tremendously diligent in the weight room. He was just a natural football player. And you could tell by his pride. He said, I realized early on that I was going to be a great player. Not that I was going to play in college, or I might play in the NFL, or someday I might even be in the Hall of Fame. He knew from when he was 13 years old that he was going to be a great player. And for Rickey, it was never bragging, because he could back it up. I'm not sure that Rickey Jackson doesn't think he could still play in the NFL right now, and who knows, maybe he could.
Well, he tried at 39 years old, failed, but I thought that you saw a lot of maturity as far as his progression, not only as a human being, but as he kind of embraced what it's like to be a Hall of Famer. When we were talking with him, and he said, you know, had I been inducted earlier, before I had taken care of all of my personal issues, that's what they would have talked about down here. They wouldn't have talked about what I did on the field. They would have talked about all the child support payments. He realized that, took care of his business, and then I think the voters recognized him as the great player that he was.
And he talked about getting into the church, and he also talks very often about the young people that he sees in the game now maybe making the same mistakes that he did. And fortunately for him, he's rectified a lot of those.
He also talked about perhaps taking care of that labor situation before it becomes a bigger situation. He loved the NFL, and now he's one of the greatest to ever play. He's Jim Henderson. I'm Scott Cody. That's the story from Canton. Rickey Jackson, the Saints' first ever Hall of Fame.
Players and coaches and the owner of the New Orleans Saints, and he will speak in just a few minutes about this tremendous season. And a lot of smiles and handshakes, and we should be hearing from the president momentarily. And when I believe he is going to go to the podium now.
Everybody, please have a seat. Have a seat. It is wonderful to see all of you. Welcome and congratulations to the 2009 Super Bowl champions, the New Orleans Saints. I want to start by recognizing some folks in my administration who are big fans of this team. Lisa Jackson from the EPA, Secretary Donovan from HUD, Craig Fugate from FEMA. We've got a few very proud members of Congress with us, Senator Mary Landrieu and Representative Steve Scalise are in the House. Congratulations to the owner, Tom Benson, who has led this team through times that would test anybody. Thank you. And General Manager Mickey Loomis for building this extraordinary championship squad. Congratulations to your outstanding head coach, Sean Payton, who's done just great work. I must point out Sean is a Chicago guy. I'm just saying. By way of Naperville, you've got to be tough to be a Chicago guy. I make some tough decisions every day, but I never decided on an onside kick in the second half of the Super Bowl. That took some guts. Were you okay with that? Did he take off with you? Yeah. I'm glad that thing went all right. Coach Payton led this team to a remarkable season. 13-0 start, franchise record for wins, a heck of an overtime win in the NFC Championship, and then after falling behind in the Super Bowl with the onside kick, huge second half, Tracy Porter's interception, guaranteeing that the Lombardi Trophy would go to the city of New Orleans for the very first time. It was an unbelievable moment. I want to congratulate the Super Bowl MVP, your quarterback, your captain, Drew Brees. Now, I have to say, all of us were very excited after the game. All my wife wanted to talk about was Balin, that little boy sitting with Drew, and everybody going, oh, you know, which I'm just saying, you made a lot of fans that day. Drew and his wife Brittany are expecting their second child in October, so congratulations to you both. Drew threw 6 touchdowns in the opening weekend, making it pretty clear that the Saints were coming to play. And over the course of the season, he set a new NFL record for accuracy, completing more than 70% of his passes. I have a few staffers who were thrilled to have Drew on their fantasy team, so they are grateful for that. And by the way, this is not Drew's first time to the White House. Last year, we filmed a PSA, some of you may have seen, encouraging America's youth to get 60 minutes of physical activity every day. He tossed me a nice tight spiral that I then lateraled to a kid on DeMarcus Ware's shoulders. Now, I also want to point out I beat Troy Polamalu over the middle on that throw. You remember? Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure he was going top speed, but finally, Drew's agreed to serve as co-chair of the new President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition. And I want to thank all the players who put on a clinic earlier this morning with children from the Boys and Girls Club as part of the Let's Move and the NFL's Play 60 program. So thank you very much, guys, for participating in that. So, look, this was an unbelievable season. After decades of frustration, the Saints finally won the big one. The Aints and the Sad Sacks gave way to the Whodats. Local musicians even gave a jazz funeral to retire the Aints nickname. But I think we all know that this season meant far more than that to the city of New Orleans and to all Americans, really. You know, look, I'm a Bears fan, I'm not going to lie, but this was a big win for the country, not just for New Orleans. Because 5 years ago, this team played its entire season on the road. It didn't have a home field. The Superdome had been ruined by Hurricane Katrina. Heartbreaking tragedies that unfolded there when it was used as a shelter from that terrible storm lingered all too fresh in a lot of people's minds. And back then, people didn't even know if the team was coming back. People didn't know if the city was coming back. Not only did the team come back, it took its city's hands and helped its city back on its feet. You know, this team took the hopes and the dreams of a shattered city and placed them squarely on its shoulders. And so these guys became more than leaders in the locker room, they became leaders of an entire region. And the victory parade that we saw earlier this year made one thing perfectly clear, that New Orleans and the New Orleans Saints are here to stay. So, you know, plenty of cities carry their sports teams through a tough season. It's a rare thing when a sports team carries its city through tough times. And that's why there's such a deep bond between this organization and the city. I'm not sure there's any other city that feels that same way right now. And that's not just for what the Saints have done on the field, but what they've done off it to see that the city keeps rising. In fact, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell recently said that every team in professional sports should use the Saints as a model for how to interact with their community. This entire team has worked with Habitat for Humanity to rebuild neighborhoods in New Orleans. Many of these guys and the coaches and the players run foundations to help children in need. All of them are off to Walter Reed later this morning to spend some time with wounded warriors who served our country. And obviously the Gulf region has spent the last few months besieged by yet another crisis. But last week we received the news that we had hoped for. Yesterday that we learned that a procedure to prevent any more oil from spilling with a cement plug appears to have succeeded. And the final steps will be taken later in August when the relief well is completed. But what is clear is that the battle to stop the oil from flowing into the Gulf is just about over. Our work goes on, though. I made a commitment to the people of the Gulf Coast that I would stand by them, not just until the well was closed, but until they recovered from the damage that's been done. And that's a commitment my administration is going to keep. So with the ongoing reopening of Gulf fisheries, we're excited that fishermen can go back to work and Americans can confidently and safely enjoy Gulf seafood once again. We're certainly going to enjoy it here at the White House. In fact, we had some yesterday. While they're here today, several Saints players are going to spend some time teaching our staff their favorite Gulf seafood recipes. So who's cooking? Which one? Somebody. It's you back there. All right. And Sam Cass, the White House, he's very excited. He's very excited. And after weeks of hearing about food from our response teams down in the Gulf, I can tell you that our staff's excited about the 30-foot po' boy we're serving at lunch today. But let me just say in closing, we are very proud of this team, and we are very proud of the owner of this team, because it required a great commitment on your part to help pull this team and this city along. And so there is a heartfelt congratulations, not just from those of us here in the White House, but I think all across America. These are big guys with big hearts and shoulders big enough to carry the hopes and dreams of an entire city with them. So with that, congratulations to all of you. New Orleans Saints, 2009 Super Bowl champions. Congratulations.
For a day, it was the Saints who were starstruck, wide-eyed fans.
Welcome and congratulations to the 2009 Super Bowl champions, the New Orleans Saints.
Just like the Saints in the Super Bowl, the president may have had some early butterflies. But like them, he got more comfortable as he settled into a rhythm. And like the head coach, he'd own the second half.
I must point out, Sean is a Chicago guy. I'm just saying. By way of Naperville, you've got to be tough to be a Chicago guy. I make some tough decisions every day, but I never decided on an onside kick in the second half of the Super Bowl.
The Saints had a game plan of their own. Usually the president gets a jersey with the number 1 on it from the defeated team. The likes of Garo Yepremian, Benny Ricardo, and Martin Gramatica have worn that for the Saints. Today they left a more appropriate gift.
The 44th president will be receiving the Super Bowl 44 jersey. That's what I'm saying.
Some brief pictures and some lasting memories later, the president was on his way. The president of the United States, the president of the Who Dat nation.
Was that a thrill?
That was so exciting. I've been here for the Pope's visit, that kind of thing, but to actually go through all the rooms was an amazing experience. Just the history I've read about and the portraits of all of the characters and the people that have lived in this amazing residence. And it's I'm just so proud to be an American, but also of this football team, these guys, there's nothing like it. So anyway, just very, very proud today.
The Saints came marching into the White House as Super Bowl champions, and they would be delighted to do that again. At the White House, Jim Henderson, Eyewitness Sports.
President Obama honored the New Orleans Saints today. There was a ceremony, and then the Super Bowl champs gave a lesson in New Orleans cuisine to the White House chef. Players Bobby McCray and Zach Streif cooked up some shrimp and andouille sausage to show Louisiana seafood is safe and delicious.
It originally came from Commander's Palace. They were nice enough to give us a recipe, and it was just it's a really easy recipe to do. So Sam had called today, let's do something with the Gulf shrimp, so that's what we did.
And the president said the team helped lift New Orleans' spirits after Katrina and continues to do so during the oil spill. People across